Natalie AI thing seems utterly preposterous and ridiculous, and even for an MCU show, I'm finding it to be a little bit of a bridge too far to go. The heist crew, all lame. Every single one of them, all lame.
So in this, I'm not sure what they're meant to be, because this character isn't to be confused with Slog.
Slug, our hacker extraordinaire.
Who is also the exact opposite in the same show. I'm really confused. I just think it's weird to have a series that seems to hate man. So in this, I'm not sure what they're meant.
Daredevil was a massive disappointment in the ratings for them, certainly. We do know, when you go and you look at through these charts, the first couple days it was out, because we have 3 days of Ironheart in these numbers, just like we had 3 days of Daredevil in these numbers. And Daredevil in those first 3 days had over 300 million minutes watched. So, and that was with less possible runtime than something like Ironheart. Yet we know that it hasn't matched that.
And why she's frustrated. That's how I feel watching her interviews.
How do you feel about the impact that she's having on young Black girls? And I'm going to be completely honest, on Black women.
You know, this is yet another area that's getting vibrant. It's getting full in the way that it should be.
One, they have Dominique Thorne, you know, going out there talking about DEI, LGBTQ rights, and how there's no agenda there, and she continues to do so. But the other thing is that they also had Robert Downey Jr., and they had him roll out and really kind of prop the show up and prop the character of Riri Williams up above Tony Stark, and really tried to really have him really as the face of the Ironheart press tour, and it really just backfired completely.
Not only is she incredibly controlling, but she's a bitch about it to everybody who works for her when things inevitably start spiraling.
Oh my God, she is so full of it.
This is not.
It deserves your attention. Ironheart deserves your attention. That's how I knew. I was like, oh, they are desperate to get people to watch this damn show. But after I did my reaction, I kept getting, hey, it wasn't that bad. I just watched it. Hey, I just watched the first 3 episodes. It wasn't that bad.
In the wake of Endgame, Marvel was standing on shaky ground. The Infinity Saga had wrapped with a record-shattering finale. But without Tony Stark, the MCU's tech genius crown sat empty. Every new face they introduced in Phase 4 felt like it was missing that spark. The solution? Find someone young, magnetic, and sharp enough to carry an entire era of Marvel storytelling. That search led them to Dominique Thorne.
More to do with Dominique Thorne going off at the fans yet again in the midst of the Ironheart ratings disaster. Now, Thorne delivered the following in a desperate play to salvage the series. I think Marvel fans, she says, just need to take a step back and to stop focusing on our support for both diversity and LGBTQ and claiming that as some form of a hidden message.
Her debut in Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, wasn't just well received. It was electric. Playing Riri Williams, a 19-year-old MIT prodigy who built her own Iron Man-level suit from scraps, Dominique stole scenes from some of the most beloved characters in the MCU. Fans called her the future of Marvel tech. Critics praised her charisma. And behind the scenes, Disney moved fast. This wasn't going to be a slow build. Marvel greenlit Ironheart almost immediately, pouring millions into production and marketing. She wasn't just another side character. She was billed as the Iron Man, positioned to bridge the gap between the franchise's past and a new, more diverse generation of heroes.
Going out there from the media that you are just a racist if you don't like Ironheart. The reason it's getting this backlash, the reason it's getting bad reviews, the reason that fans don't like what they see, it's just because all the damn racists out there, Jay. Yeah, and it's like the real Tony Stark. It's like back somehow, and there's like a moment where she's flying through and he's like, who is that? And she's like, I'm Ironheart, Mr. Stark. And he's like, I like that girl. And then he like goes to do something else. Like that would be like the level of something that I think would possibly happen.
Press tours, magazine covers, glowing interviews, everything screamed Marvel's next icon. For a brief moment, it seemed like they had found their answer. The hype was real, the path to stardom wide open. But, as Marvel has learned time and time again, hype is only half the battle, the other half, delivering. And that's where everything would start to crumble. On paper, Ironheart was everything Marvel needed to reignite the MCU. The concept was sharp, a Gen Z engineering genius with street smarts, ambition, and the nerve to step into Tony Stark's shadow without living in it. The show promised to blend STEM brilliance with urban grit, mixing high-tech spectacle with a more grounded, personal story. Marvel framed it as fresh, edgy, and emotionally charged, the perfect formula for a post-Endgame world hungry for new heroes.
A lot of questions right now, but one thing is for certain is that this is really putting a nail in the coffin. Maybe not the final nail, but a nail in the coffin for Disney Plus Marvel-oriented shows out there. And people are just growingly losing interest at this point, kind of like what happened with Star Wars time and time again. Now,
the execution plan was massive. They stack the writer's room with diverse voices, pulled in big-name directors, and funneled millions into VFX. They crafted cross-platform marketing campaigns, from TikTok filters to Instagram AR suits, ensuring Riri Williams would be everywhere by the time the show dropped. Merch lines were greenlit before filming wrapped. Funko Pops, Lego sets, apparel, even rumored tie-ins with STEM education programs. And fans bought in instantly. Cosplays flooded conventions months before the premiere. Theory videos speculated on team-ups with Spider-Man, Shuri, and the Young Avengers. Every glimpse of Dominique in the Ironheart armor sent social media into a frenzy.
Riri Williams, played by Dominique Thorne, on multiple talk show programs out there, a lot of which were, of course, affiliated with Disney. We'll talk more about that down the road. However, this is where it gets really intense, because we know that Robert Downey Jr. is a very busy man right now. He is heavily involved with Avengers Doomsday, and among other...
For Marvel, this wasn't a side quest. This was a flagship launch, a billion-dollar handoff of the MCU's technological heart. All the pieces were in place. The pitch wasn't just golden, it felt bulletproof, until the first hairline cracks started to show. The first whispers came long before Ironheart ever hit a screen. At first, small, a leak here, a rumor there, but each one hinted at trouble brewing behind Marvel's polished PR curtain. Anonymous crew members spoke of late-night rewrites that gutted key scenes. Storyboards were allegedly scrapped mid-production, forcing entire sequences to be reshot on the fly. The buzz online was brushed off as typical MCU secrecy, but insiders knew better. These weren't creative tweaks. They were damage control moves. Fan blogs began dissecting leaked set photos, spotting inconsistencies in Riri's suit design that suggested last-minute changes. Meanwhile, reports emerged of tense debates in the writer's room over the show's tone. Was Ironheart meant to be a grounded character drama or a flashy CGI spectacle? No one could seem to agree, and that indecision seeped into every stage of production. Marvel's public stance was cool confidence. Spokespeople waved away concerns, framing them as part of the process. But even the most loyal fans noticed how unusually quiet Dominique had become on social media, skipping promotional posts she'd once enthusiastically shared. It wasn't a full-blown crisis yet. The hype machine was still running. The trailers were still trending. But for those paying attention, the sheen was starting to wear off, and the first signs of a much bigger problem were impossible to ignore. When Ironheart finally premiered, the anticipation was off the charts. The opening episode looked promising. Slick VFX, a bold soundtrack, and enough MCU Easter eggs to keep diehard fans pausing and rewinding. But within minutes, cracks turned into chasms. The pacing felt uneven, swinging from high-energy action to drawn-out dialogue that drained momentum. Scenes that should have hit with emotional weight landed awkwardly, leaving viewers unsure whether to feel inspired or bored. Then came the dialogue backlash. Clips of Riri's quips, meant to be sharp and witty, were pulled out of context and shared online, quickly becoming meme fodder. Social media lit up with side-by-side comparisons of Ironheart and early CW superhero shows. Not exactly the league Marvel wanted to be in. By episode 2, the numbers told the real story. analytics revealed a steep viewer drop-off midway through each episode. Engagement charts showed fewer and fewer people even finishing the season. Hashtags that once hyped the show were replaced by snark and criticism. Marvel's PR push tried to drown out the noise, but the momentum had shifted. The debut wasn't a launchpad to stardom, it was a warning shot. And as the season continued, things weren't just going downhill, they were about to spiral out of control. If the show's rocky debut rattled fans, what happened next detonated the entire conversation. In the middle of mounting criticism, Dominique Thorne gave an interview that should have been a chance to rally support. Instead, one quote exploded across the internet. Her comment about genius Black women being underappreciated in Hollywood, which some applauded her for speaking on representation. Others accused her of dodging the show's legitimate flaws. Overnight, the discussion shifted from Ironheart's storytelling to Dominique herself, and it wasn't flattering. Clips of the interview went viral on TikTok, stitched with sarcastic commentary and memes mocking her tone. Hashtags like Iron Flop and Not My Iron Man trended for days. Fans who had once hyped the character now picked apart her every move. Rather than calming the storm, Dominique doubled down in a follow-up post, telling critics they needed to grow up and stop expecting every Marvel project to be the same. The comment hit like gasoline on a fire, further alienating core MCU fans who felt dismissed and talked down to. Marvel's PR team went silent, pulling her from a scheduled press junket without explanation. The sudden absence only fueled speculation that internal tensions were boiling over. The show was struggling, the star was under siege, and the Inte wasn't about to let either recover quietly. And behind closed doors, the real chaos was just beginning. While fans argued online, the set of Ironheart had already been a pressure cooker for months. Reports from crew members painted a picture of constant turnover, writers cycling in and out, directors clashing over tone, and executives pushing for last-minute changes that threw entire shooting schedules into disarray. One insider claimed a major director walked off mid-production after refusing to reshoot scenes for the third time, leaving the crew scrambling to keep the season on track. Budget overruns became a quiet crisis. Each reshoot added millions, and elaborate VFX sequences had to be re-rendered after Marvel demanded more cinematic punch. What should have been a tightly produced 6-episode run started ballooning into an expensive salvage mission. Even Dominique's scenes reportedly weren't immune. Rumors swirled that multiple takes were scrapped because the delivery did. Match Marvel's shifting vision for Riri, a character who was originally written as street smart and witty, but now needed to be more inspirational for broader audiences. By the time post-production began, deadlines were slipping, tempers were fraying, and the project that had once been Marvel's golden child was now a costly gamble. And yet, the studio pushed forward, determined to release something, even if it meant ignoring the growing cracks in the armor. What came next wasn't just a career stumble. It was a full-blown disappearance. Then, almost overnight, Dominique Thorne went dark. No Instagram posts, no tweets, no interviews, nothing. Fans noticed she skipped a major Marvel panel she'd been confirmed for, with the studio offering only a vague, scheduling conflict as an excuse. Whispers spread fast. Some claimed she'd clashed with executives over the show's direction. Others suggested she was quietly stepping back from the spotlight to escape the backlash. Speculation filled the vacuum. YouTubers dissected her last public appearance, searching for signs of strain. Reddit threads spun theories, ranging from secret contract disputes to Marvel quietly recasting her role. Marvel stayed silent, and Dominique's absence became its own mystery. The star who was once positioned as the MCU's next tech genius had seemingly vanished, and with her, any hope of salvaging Ironheart's battered reputation. The question now wasn't if the hype was dead, it was whether Riri Williams would ever return at all. By the time the dust settled, Ironheart had cost Marvel an eye-watering $120 million. And that was before marketing. For a series meant to launch a new era, the return was grim. Viewership numbers fell far below projections. Merchandise sat unsold, and international interest barely registered. What should have been a flagship MCU success story had become one of the studio's most expensive misfires. Inside Disney, execs reportedly debated what cut their losses entirely. Reshoots or rebranding would cost millions more, but shelving the project meant admitting defeat, something Marvel had rarely done in public. Meanwhile, analysts warned that the failure risked damaging not just the Ironheart brand, but faith in the MCU's future. The show's golden pitch had turned into a cautionary tale, and for $120 million, Marvel learned the hard way. Hype can't save you when the story and the star disappear. Months later, Dominique finally resurfaced, not with a triumphant return, but with a carefully worded Instagram statement. It opened with the classic notes: gratitude for the fans, acknowledgement of challenging times, and a promise that she'd grown from the experience. But buried between the lines was what many saw as a dodge. She never addressed the controversies, the vanishing act, or the behind-the-scenes chaos directly. Instead, she spoke vaguely about navigating creative differences and finding balance in the spotlight. The post was clearly crafted for damage control, complete with a soft-lit photo and comments limited to prevent backlash. But fans weren't buying it. Replies accused her of sidestepping responsibility, while critics called it PR fluff meant to close the book without answering questions. For Marvel, it was too little too late. The apology didn't reignite interest, deepened the loss. Dominique's future in the MCU was left ambiguous, her character's next appearance to be determined. For a project once pitched as the bold new face of Marvel, it was a muted, almost unceremonious ending. The golden pitch had collapsed into a footnote, and the MCU had quietly closed the door on one of its costliest missteps. When the dust finally settled, Ironheart became less of a show and more of a cautionary tale. Industry insiders dissected its collapse in think pieces, pointing to bloated budgets, unclear creative direction, and the danger of overhyping an untested character. For Marvel, the sting wasn't just financial. It was the first real sign that the MCU's once invincible brand could stumble hard. Dominique Thorne kept a low profile, quietly taking smaller roles outside the superhero sphere. Marvel, meanwhile, shifted focus to safer bets, established heroes, crossover events, and nostalgia-driven projects. Still, whispers persisted that Riri Williams might return someday, perhaps retooled for a future film cameo. Whether that comeback ever happens is anyone's guess. For now, Ironheart lives on only in streaming archives, a $120 million reminder that even in the MCU, not every story gets a second chance.